However, and there is a caveat in the guidance notes, if the project manager and the contractor agree that the lump of money in the activity schedule, the bill, whatever it is, if both are satisfied that this is an adequate representation of the cost, then you can just remove it. But it takes agreement from both parties. So it's very important that you keep a very good relationship with your client project manager. Okay then, so from a planning perspective, how do we ensure that the maximum recovery is achieved for a compensation event? And it's records, records, records. It's photograph records. It's the comparison between resource levels at the beginning and at the end. You must be able to do it. And the very general 3 operatives across a summary bar becomes very difficult to prove that that's where you were intending that the resources were going to be allocated to. Fully resourced accepted programs with the method statement attached present you with the most robust position that you can come from. And even then, sometimes the compensation event will not seem equitable. However, by and large, you will come out on the plus side. Inevitably, there's going to be 1 or 2 that you don't win on. If time is not increased as a result of a compensation event, then you must be able to demonstrate additional resource, restructuring of the programme, and how that has increased your cost. Disruption is incredibly hard to prove. Incredibly hard. It is the most difficult thing to demonstrate and then actually recover the money for. So in essence, the more robust the programme, the method statement and the resource profile, the better chance you have of recovering any loss due to disruption. Productivity rates for equipment and labour, as I've said before. If you've got a phasing diagram and you've got a nice pedestrian route to your work face, and for some reason the client takes that piece of the site away from you, and then you need to have them walk round, or in a worst case bust round, unless you can demonstrate that that was the route and that was the amount of time, again, it becomes very difficult to prove. So have your phasing diagrams. They need to be in sequence with your program. So as your programs develop, as the project develops, then your sequence and phasing diagrams should change as well. Something that it is always useful: how much time do we lose as a result of briefing the operatives? If you've got 60 to 70 guys on site and you've got to get them all together, marshal them into a room, speak to them for half an hour about a change in the site, that's a significant loss in terms of productivity. So if you've got your briefings, your weekly briefing, clearly there's going to be toolbox talks and other aspects to do with briefing, but if there is a briefing that's required as a result of change, that is a real gem to be able to earn some money on. Okay, recovery of additional prelim costs, and this also runs in tandem with the deferment of liquidated damages. It's essential that the programme contains sufficient level of detail to be able to accurately insert the change activities. If you've got a very high-level programme with not too many activities and durations of 6 and 8 weeks, it becomes very difficult to accurately predict where the effects of the change are. So the greater level of detail is much more responsive to the effects of change. When we were over at the Olympics, the head of structures, bridges and highways said to me, he said, there are 3 times as many activities in your programme for 1 bridge as there are in another contractor's programme for 3 bridges. And my response was, yes, but which one of us has got an extension of time? and it goes without saying it was us. Damages can be fairly hefty, and in this particular instance we had damages sitting at around £21,200 a day, with the project manager not acting as proactively as he could have done. That presents a real-time risk to the company at this particular point of about £4 million, potentially. Now, it may never have happened, but that, you know, if they'd drawn a line under it at that stage, that was the risk. So, as well as driving out to increase your preliminary costs, to recover the preliminary expenses, it's also about the deferment of liquidated damages. If you have a programme that contains massive amounts of float in the substrands, any effect of delays on those will not be mirrored in the programme. So it is important. I mean, I'm not suggesting that you create relationships that don't exist, but largely, if the work is structured properly, there will be a series of phases, and there shouldn't be massive amounts of float in any strand. So you need to structure it, in my opinion, so that you've got a critical path, a subcritical path 3 to 5 days behind that, another one maybe 5 to 10 days, and at the most 20 days float in any strand. And then that will enable you to keep progressing the programme without including too much risk. Method statements must include dependencies, routes to and from the work face, phasing diagrams and sequence studies for repetitive operations. You must have the most robust position that you can come from. Estimates of resources and allocation should include labour, plant and equipment, what has been specified, its outputs, and any constraints. Constraints in a programme are my personal bugbear. If you put a constraint in the programme, the critical path starts there. And, you know, if you've specified as late as possible constraint in a programme, I can't imagine a commercial situation where somebody would want a project to take as long as it can. So my advice is use as soon as possible, you know, or none, and have finish to start relationships wherever possible. The software options available are numerous, and the ability to manage information is extensive. The software has not been designed, however, to conform with the mechanisms in the various contracts, nor should it be, because it's not going to be tailored to our specific requirements. So as planners, we need to make sure that we understand the software well enough to be able to represent the contract mechanisms in the programme itself, to make sure that we maintain our employer's position. Planners must ensure that the effects of change can be demonstrated and are therefore measurable to ensure that the full entitlement is recovered. This is only achieved with detailed baselines.